We've all felt it. Days blending
Hello everyone, we already have quite a few viewers here, and I will be starting in a bit. I just need to set up a few more things, and I think then we can get going. But in the meantime, feel free to let me know about streaming quality, on all these things. Yeah, like I don't have any specific topics for now, but I think I'll just freeball it a bit and just look at the comments in the chat here and then just see what we can talk about. But in the meantime, yeah, just say hello, where you're from and all that so I can get set up a few more things. Sound is great on Twitch, that's great. And yeah, we are now streaming again on Twitch and YouTube at the same time. Alright, so I just want to see if I can actually show my face here. And I hope it will work. Just always is a bit tricky. I still don't have that nice cam link thing from Elgato, but I will have it soon, I believe. Just give me a sec before we jump into this. Yeah, I'll talk about operators. We're so close. It was working. This thing, I'm using like this third-party camera thing, and it's it sometimes works and it sometimes just does not work. And I'm also posting this on social media right now, so if you have the time and you want to help me, just share this maybe and we can stream this together and get a bit more people on this stream. Yeah, we should also have a notifications now, so whenever there's a new subscriber to the channel on YouTube or a new follower on Twitch, you should get a nice little ping here. So I tried to set all these things up. I'll be there in a bit. I'm just waiting for the camera to work, hopefully. Oh, we were so close. I'll just mute your mic in a bit and then I'll be back. Sorry for a bit of the delay here. But feel free to keep chatting on already so we can get this thing going soon. Yeah, that's a good point, Pogo. I will be talking about that too. It's a good point. Just remind me, maybe. All right. I think we are good, or we are pretty close to being good. So my picture's there, I can dance. I hope it's not, I might need to move the view if it's not working. So I'll just make it a bit larger for now. So I think we can start. I think I have everything set up now. It was a bit tricky actually. Well, not as tricky as the previous one, but I think we are now pretty good set up. Oh, I need to remove that overlay here. There you go. So yeah, first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining this Saturday, and it has been a great weekend so far for me. Well, it was just Friday, but it's a good start. We went out yesterday. We have a little Falls Creek water section here, so we went outside, and I took some nice time lapses and some pictures and 4K video stuff for my upcoming tutorials to make everything a bit more personal, a bit more interesting for you guys. And as you might know by now or notice that I'm trying to like pimp up my channels, right? So I just want to make everything a bit more polished, and by doing these live streams, oh, it's super hard to read the chat, but it will be better soon. I think by doing this, I'll just give more to you guys because of all the great support I'm getting on all my channels and stuff. So also one thing, let's just test if that still works, because I set up these little subscriber notifications, so I hope we can test it quickly. It's just helps you guys to be appreciated a bit more on my channel. So let's see if I click here and send a test. Yay! So that does work. That's great. So whenever there's a new sub on my channel on YouTube and a follow on Twitch, you should get that nice little ping up there. Alrighty, so let's just hide my face here. Okay. So now we will be showing the desktop, and I think I will minimize myself. I think that works pretty well. Yep. All right, so let's just bring my desktop here. All right, boom, boom. Great. Okay, just give me another thumbs up or something if you see everything, and otherwise, and then we get going. Okay, as I said before, I don't have any specific projects I want to show right now. I have something on my little whiteboard here on the right, but essentially I'm just reading the comments here, and I'm just pretty much trying to incorporate all the questions and whatnot so we can do this stream here together and hopefully have some fun. Yeah, so actually let me just at least open up Maya so we can see something. Yeah, so it's not super boring. So the first question already, oh, that's so many questions already. So what I'm thinking about the Unreal Engine, the new video, yeah, it's pretty impressive. Like what they showcase is phenomenal, right? Like all the features they implemented and this lighting up, like I'm not exactly sure what the term that they called it, but it was super interesting just to see how fluid everything is. Obviously it will still need to be tested, and the scene, even though it looked complex, I think once you get more characters involved and lots of different geometries and whatnot, I'm not sure, but I think there will be some difficulties to get everything streamlined, especially if you want to play it in 120 FPS in a game, for instance, and stuff like that. But I totally can see it in the VFX industry being used or adopted way more. So yeah, YouTube question here, what my monitor is. I'm right now, my main monitor is a 4K monitor. And then I have a second one here on the right, which is just there to like drop stuff, right? Just to have my attribute editor in Maya and whatnot. Yeah, so I think this is pretty cool. We just need to get more people streaming, so I think that will happen too, though. How much is improvised in a big production? Is everything pretty tight, or workflows always changed and people come up with their own little solutions? Obviously, I can't go into much detail here, but all I can tell you is that at least what my experience so far in productions on working with different companies, it's always a bit, you always need to find a new way to actually fix things, and there's always different hurdles you need to tackle or jump over, and so obviously there's a streamlined pipeline, but sometimes it just doesn't work properly, and things need to be adjusted and yeah, updated, I guess. Little own solutions, little scripts, and all these things. Yes, ILM developed this. No, I forgot it already. That studio where you have these LED screens, right? So this is a pretty state-of-the-art technology where they have real-time Unreal engines projected on all these LED screens, and the actors can actually see the environments, which is pretty impressive. So this is something which will be adopted way more, I think. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, nice shave. I actually woke up in the morning. I thought, yeah, I need to freshen up a bit. Actually, my wife told me to. All right, so as you can see now, we can talk a bit about operators. We were talking about stand-ins, but let me just first give you a quick introduction to operators in general. If my Wacom would be working again. It's sometimes like I have this little charging station here. Oh, thanks for the subscription there. That's really appreciated. And the charging station interferes with my Wacom tablet, so I get some weird signals. Come on, Wacom. There we go. All right. So let's just head over to Maya first. Obviously, everyone, I think most of you guys are coming from Maya and you know the interface. And I think I messed up the DPIs again, so sorry, you need to bear with me one more time because I keep changing the DPI for my monitor and I need to update this for the streams all the time so you can actually see what I'm doing. So let me just restart this. And in the meantime, I can just talk about operators. So operators are like it's a little bridge from the plugin from, let's say, Maya to Arnold. So there's a bridge from the Maya scene to the render, which is called a translation process. And in that translation process, the scene file gets actually translated into a language which Arnold understands, which is called an AS file, Arnold scene description, essentially. And operators are acting on that, on the translation process. So you can actually, before it gets to the pixel being rendered, the operator manipulates the AS file, essentially. So it's very complex and very powerful. Well, Marcel Deneuve asked a question about what I'm thinking about the Arnold GPU and how often I use it. So it's a good question for sure. I still think it should keep the beta tag on it. I think they removed it. I still think it's not fully on par with the other GPU renders, but they are improving it every day. Like I'm working with the Arnold team and give them feedback quite often. So we are just trying, or they are definitely trying to make it even better and more streamlined and on par, obviously, with all the other competitors. But I definitely use it, yeah, but I will not use it in the stream because I'm actually encoding and compressing everything using my NVIDIA card, so I don't want to mess that up by running on the GPU. So OBS, which is my streaming software, is now take about 40% of the GPU. All right, I'm not sure if Houdini has a DPI option, and I need to mute this quickly. All right, so operators, you find them in the Arnold menu under operators, and you have quite a few ones here, and you can export and import them. The nice thing about that is that you can actually share them between different DCCs, which is very powerful as well. the main thing I'm using operators for is essentially if I'm super lazy and I don't want to go to the Arnold settings all the time and set the subdivisions, or for instance, if you have curves, I don't want to set those and all these kind of funky things, right? And I'll just show you a few basic things, how you can get that going. So what can we do here? Let's just start with a basic box just to showcase what it's essentially doing. So let's say I have a cube here. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but if I would render this now, you should see that on the wireframe mode, it's not subdivided, right? All right, so it's not subdivided. So normally what I do, I need to go to the shape, go to Arnold, and it's the same thing for Houdini. You would also do this on the attributes or properties over there. Go to subdivs and set them to cat clock, and then you run it, right? So now it's subdivided. So let's say you have 1,000 objects. You would need to do this either with selection sets, right? But now everything, obviously because I duplicated them, they all are subdivided. But let's say I'm lazy and I just disable this quick. Like this. So now they are not. Obviously you can do selection sets, so you select them and create a quick selection set, and then you can do these same things. But you can also do it on a global operator scheme, which is pretty cool. So if it changes to the node editor, which will actually display rendering nodes, I can go to my render settings, and in here is a operator section, and there's a target operator, which is essentially, it's like a stacked thing. So you have your main operator, and then you can append and append and append more and more to get actually, yeah, to apply different ones. And there's so many you can apply. So what I always do as my main one is that I'm just creating a set parameter one. And if I head over to the attribute editor and display them in here, you can see now this is hooking up to my operator. And then each operator has, if I show all attributes here, has other inputs. So you can actually stack how many you want together, and they will act upon the AS files which are translated. So let's just call this one maybe master op or whatever. So the cool thing now in here, you can do polymesh operations, and let's say I want to do iteration. So now I can set my iterations to 2. Obviously nothing is happening because the mode is still not set. But in the polymesh, then I can do, which one is it? Type. And if I change the type to cat Clark, I should have started the render, and you can still see that nothing is happening because there's no selection right now assigned. So obviously you would need to do an asterisk here. This will affect the whole scene. And you can see now it's actually a live update, which is amazing. And let's just quickly change the render settings in general, so actually you can see a bit more as well. Let's do full HD, refresh, move things a bit over. Yeah, so you can see now this stuff is updating on the fly. So I can, for instance, change the subdivs to 1, and you can see it's just essentially updating. Now I made a mistake. I typed in accidentally 21, so I hope this will fix again, and it will not subdivide it 21 times. So in the meantime, let's just read up on the chat here. If you have to choose from 2 displays for your vision, what do you choose? 4K for full HD monitor, and why? Well, I just want to have a large screen essentially, and this is actually the first time I had a 4K monitor, and I really enjoy it just because of the DPI, right? I can place everything on one screen, and before I had two different ones, and it was just super dense, and I had to move things around. But now I can have everything on one monitor, which is pretty cool. So yeah, as you can see, it's still doing its thing. My RAM is cranking, so I'm pretty sure it will die in a bit. Maybe I should just stop it before it dies. Yeah, let me just kill it quickly. Yeah. All right, so let's just bring it up. So you can see, obviously I messed it up now because I tapped 21, which you shouldn't do. But essentially you can update things on the fly. icons are way too large for me now because I changed the DPI for you guys too, so you can actually see something. So there was a question, how do you transfer hair from one DCC to the next? And I got the question quite often on XGen, how you do that. And I'm not sure exactly how to do it with the regular XGen description workflow, but with interactive grooming splines, you can just export those curves as well. And I'll be showing this now, how you do this in Houdini and how you would transfer them over to Maya, which is actually, it has been tricky to get it to work, because if you just import the curves directly, it's actually very weird, and Maya is just super slow. So I found a nice solution for this. So let's just go to Houdini and just create a little, we can use Tommy, our test guy here, and we can cut off his head to just export everything, like export the hair. So let's just go maybe low res, and we do, oh, let's actually high res. And then we can just do enter and do maybe this. Okay, so I'm just doing a very quick groom quickly. So I'm just doing attribute paint here just to paint densities for my head here. So attribute paint, there it is. And I can also blast the other groups away, so we just have the head actually to work with. Like this. And I just want the body, so we flip it. All right. Hey Muhammad, good evening for you. Yeah, if any questions, if something is too fast here, just let me know in the chat here. I'm actively reading everything, and I want to thank you and welcome everyone who joined the stream. We now have it looks like we have 60 viewers on YouTube, and no, it's actually a total of 60 with Twitch together. So that's amazing. Thank you guys for tuning in here. Let's see what the live view count is. Yeah, 41. So thank you. All right, so in the attribute paint here, what I want to do, I just very quickly want to paint some density so we actually get hair on, like just a very basic hair shape. Let's just do this. And some of you might already know this, like I did stream a very similar technique over on Twitch, but now I just thought it's great for everyone to see it as well on my YouTube, where I have more of the guys over, right? But we're trying to build the channel, so hopefully we will get an equal amount over on Twitch as well and on YouTube. So enough rambling here, and let's hook it up. All right, so now we have the groom, like at least the density map painted. So let's just type in here Tommy, and now what we can do, we can just create a add fur. We change the mode here to grooming, and then we change this to groom bear, which I like to use quite often. Some UI glitches here. And then I'm just clicking add fur, which will generate fur everywhere. Yeah, happy to help. Krakaya. Sorry, man. That's actually a bit hard to read those names. But yeah, I'm trying to help obviously as much as I can. So let's accept this. Did it do it? All right, so now it's generating all the fur. You can see a very furry face. What we want to do in hair gen, we want to definitely go to the general density and pick our skin attribute. And this one would be the mask, which we just defined. So now you can see we just have the top hair. Obviously we have then like guide hairs everywhere, so I can just remove them. And we go into groom bear here, and we just create the groom bear tools, a groom operator node here. And in this little tool set, we can just scatter hair how we want it to be. So there's a scatter option, and we can also enable live mirroring here. So if I paint hair now, you should see that we get them all over the place. Obviously they are a bit too thick and not dense enough and a bit too long, so we can just fix that in the settings here. Let's go with this. All right, that's too much. So I'm just trying to find a nice value here, so it's not too short and not too long, but I think this will just do it. So this is now my my guide hairs essentially. So if I change the mode to shape, I can extend the top hairs a bit, like this. And then I can just, let's say I just want to have like a funky like hair comb backwards. Something really, really basic. And I just want to show you how to transfer them, right? Obviously, I will not do the perfect job right now. Groom Tommy, yeah. And I'll just go to scatter again and add a few more. Well, Tommy's Houdini's like one of their test objects. So they have like a few default ones, which is pretty cool. So they give you already a few characters to play on and work with, which is nice because then you can have already some nice geometry. All right, so now we have this going. Let's go up here and see how it looks on the hair. So we got this right now. So we just need to change our influence radius so it's actually picking up more of the guides. Ooh, it looks almost like a Wolverine guy, whatever. We can smoothen it out the more we add. You can see now it gets very smooth because it takes more and more guides into consideration. And what we can do next is obviously go into the hair gen and we can add some clumping and we can do some frizziness and all these things. So let's just add some frizz first. Ooh, Afro guy. And obviously we just want to affect the tips and we maybe want to reduce the overall frequency. So it's not too much. And you can see how very fast you can set something up, right? And I'm just flying over the settings right now. Clumping, we want to clump it based on the guide, so I'm just doing that. So now he's got a little funky hairstyle. And we want to maybe reduce increase the density. So we can do a hair generate, pick up our frizz hair here, like this. And based on those, we can actually generate more hair, which is interesting. So let's see, density, we want to use a skin attribute, we want to use a mask. And in the hair gen now, the cool thing is I can increase the density, which is based on my guides essentially. So now, sorry, was I talking? Yeah, so now, oh, thanks for the subscription here, Rapesh. So this is now using my guides and I'm just adding more density to this. So if I use the hair clump now with the new generated guides, we get way finer clumps here, which is cool. Obviously, I don't want to go into super much detail here. I just want to get a basic look here. So we can maybe just stick with this, what we have. So what I want to do now is just export the hair. So we can do just create a new geo group and I just call this export. We can't do it directly in the hair gen, but I just thought we just split it up. And in here, I'm just doing an object merge. And depending on what platform application you use, you just export Alembic files, right? So that's what I'm doing now. I'm just picking the hair gen, which is this guy, and I'll make sure I'm just showing the hairs, and they look pretty good. So all I need to do now is essentially create a Alembic ROP or whatever application you use to export it. So now I'm just picking a location. Let's just go to my home folder. Yeah, home folder, and we just call it Tommy Groom ABC. And let's just export this. So this is now exported to disk. So in Maya, what you would, I guess typically you would think to do is go to the cache menu, Alembic, import Alembic. But what this will be doing, it will actually import the curves into Maya. And let's say you have 10 millions of hairs and you don't want to import them into Maya because Maya will essentially just die. So what you can do instead is use the Arnold stand-ins. If you click that, you can pick a path. And we just need to find it where we put it. It was in Houdini, Tommy Groom. You can see obviously my scale is off, but essentially this is here where the curves are. And I don't think you can actually visualize them. I tried showing like wireframes or point clouds, but I think it just cannot display the curves, which is fine. You don't need to see them. But just for the completeness, let's bring over the head as well. So I'm just picking Tommy up here, which should be him, and we can just essentially do the same without the groom. And export the Tommy guy. So if I export him now to disk, we can do the same. We can just do, let's just call this Groom. And we can now create a new stand-in and call this one Head or Tommy or whatever. And bring him in. So now we have Tommy and the Groom. And I think we should be able to display Tommy at least. Let's try this. Yeah, so we can display him, which is great. Let's just fix my clipping planes here, 0.01. So now you can see you have Tommy in the scene. And this is now essentially not affecting Maya at all. So we are taking Maya out of the question here. We're just applying a stand-in, which is Arnold's little proxy objects. And you can export stand-ins and import them and distribute them. Like you can have millions of stand-ins and it will just use instancing to just keep essentially a very low memory footprint. Let me know in the chat if everything makes sense what I'm talking so far, if I'm going too fast or whatnot. So I would appreciate if you can just give me a feedback on those things I'm talking about here. Or if I'm talking about out of my ass and stuff like that. So everything is important. Alright, so let me actually save the scene. I didn't save it at all. So let's just save it on the desktop just for the saving's sake. So let's just do Tommy. Okay, that's saved. Let's just hide the object details here. And if I render now, let's see what happens. You can see it's essentially instantaneous, and you can see how super fast everything goes. It's really fun to work with the stand-ins, especially like how fast. I keep repeating myself, but it's fast. So what I actually need to maybe scale it up. Let's just scale it up by a factor of 10. And hide this crap. All right, so now we have Tommy in this location. All right, and then let's just bring in a light quickly. So Arnold lights, Skydome light, attribute editor, and pick a light here. Use a file texture node. And I'm just picking one of my default HDRIs here. Can we use interactive groom option of curves to spline? Does it support Alembic import now? Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with the XGen side. That's my little culprit here. I know you can export curves from the interactive grooming splines, and I think you can export alembics, or well, you can generate the curves and then export the alembic from that. All right, so let's move it to shaded mode, which didn't update. Oh, because we don't have any shaders assigned. So I guess this is also something you need to assign a specific shader to the stand-in. And we'll be talking about these things in a bit here. So there's now a standard surface shader. And let's just assign this to the head. Let's see if it updated. Yeah, it did. Perfect. So this is the Tommy head here. Let's just rename this to MTL Tommy. And then we do a standard hair shader too. And we select a groom and we assign that to the hair. And we just call this MTL hair. Hi from Iran, hello. You're my render man, yeah, that's funny. All right, so let's just, and you can see now Tommy is back in action. We have a front lit scenario right now, so I can just actually rotate this. My handle is all the way down here. Alright, so now this is how you essentially transfer the hair from A to B. Obviously now we can play around with all the shading stuff. We can have like a blonde character here. Zoom in a bit on the hair. And I still need to change my render settings, which I didn't change again because it crashed. Let's hide the outliner. Alright. And then render settings, I need to change this to progressive, and we need to push the specular samples for here because they like more spec samples. It's to 4, maybe zoom out a bit. Alright, so this is essentially how you do that. So what we can do now with operators, let's see if we can actually find a few nice things. Melody randomize first. That's maybe a bit too light. Alright, so we've got this guy going. So in the operators, as I said before, they are pretty much a thing for the Maya scene as a global setting, right? To mess around globally. But each stand-in has its own set of operators, which is very, very, very cool. So first of all, you can open up the Alembic contents and see what is in here. And the cool thing now is you can add different things per object in here, which is amazing. High tech, yeah, the Groom is too perfect because I just wanted to show you the transfer from A to B. I'm not really doing any grooming right now. So in the object merge, you can essentially add an assignment. We are now on the head, right? So if I go to wireframe mode here, we can add a polymesh subdiv, for instance. So we can set the type. We can add iterations in here, and you can set everything from here as well, which is cool. You can see how it's just updating on the fly, and this is now totally out of the loop from Maya or any other DCC. This is happening on the Arnold ass side, which is funky. And if you find it weird that I'm saying ass file, it's actually Arnold's scene description, and I think the devs had some fun by naming their objects and whatnot. So their internal render engine is called Kick. So if you put those words together, it's called Cake Ass, which is pretty funny actually, like a little insider joke. And yeah, you can see now on the operator side, you can merge different operators trees, and you can create collections, which is essentially selection sets. And you can base, let's say you have tons of characters and you did some great naming conventions in your scenes. You can use these collections to, for instance, target all the characters or target only the eyes, or like you can see the flexibility, and you can do all sorts of things with this, right? So I could do now a shader assignment, I believe. Let's see if I'm talking crap. You can assign a operator set parameter, or let's see. There's a set parameter. And this is now happening only on him. So I think this works. Let's try. Let's see. So what I'm trying to do is you can do, I think you can do material assignments in here somewhere. Shader, there it is. So just with an operator, you can essentially do different shader assignments. So let's say you have a really nice naming conventions in your scene, and you tag your objects with kind of metal or plastic or like all sorts of naming conventions you came up with in your pipeline. You can essentially do your selection here based on namespace and just target everything which has a metal or something, right? This would be amazing for animation play blasts, for instance. So you can just run your operator, import your operator in your animation scenes, and everything looks already pretty cool. And obviously it depends how much detail you want to go into these default shaders, but this is I find a very cool flexibility. So if I do a flat shader now, just for the fun of it, we're going here, I can just drop it, I guess. And now you can see Tommy has a different kind of look because I overrode it. But essentially, if I don't have the operator enabled, he will get his default shader. So I can just disable it here and we get the other shader back, right? And I hope you see the power you have with this. And what I'm doing here is just essentially scratching the surface. How to learn more about lights theory for 3D. Let me just read the comment quickly. Like, I have a real footage and I want to add some 3D elements inside it. How to achieve the exact lighting CG environment to match it. Very good. Yeah, so essentially your question is how do you integrate objects, right, into a plate? And I think it comes a bit with experience, as you need to understand how the light is bouncing. Like if you have a sphere, like where does the light come from? Obviously you have your key light directions, you've got bounce lights and all of these things, but essentially there's no real book to learn it. It's just observation, I would say, essentially. And I guess experience too. And if you want to, like, you're asking for theory, and because everything is now a PBR, physical plausible, I'm not sure exactly what it was, workflow, you can apply the same techniques you would apply to a photo set, right, to a studio. It's essentially the same deal. If you have a softbox, you want to make it larger to get softer shadows. If you want to make it smaller to get more crisp shadows. So all of these things apply the same way. So let's see, there's a new question. Is the audio actually on? Yeah. So how often is procedural shading used in production for final frame running, and do you bake the procedural effects to textures? Also, how would you bake procedural nodes to textures? Yes, I actually have this on my list, texture baking, and I'll be brushing up on that too. So the question, to answer your question, is how often is it used in production? And at least in the productions I work for so far, we didn't do much procedural shading for final renders. Obviously we had here and there, we had a few noises to break up specs, but that was mostly on a shot per shot basis, just to help get them get the nodes in, to get the director nodes in or whatever. But essentially everything which we get is a texture from the texture department. So what they do, they essentially work closely with lighting, and obviously they have their look dev reviews and look dev dailies and whatnot. So they are presenting their assets, and based off that, they will get feedback, and they will, obviously in Mari or Substance or wherever they do their work, they can apply procedurals, they can apply the same noises we can do at render time, and they just bake it to the texture. So and rendering and VFX at least is all about efficiency and getting low, like fast render times. And obviously the same applies for real time for game engines, right? So it's very key to make sure that everything is efficient and baked down. Let me see. Did you ever see 3D lighting odds becoming later drops? Not sure what later drop. Oh, DOPs. I'm sorry. Yeah, DOPs. Yeah, well, it's like, I don't know too many people who actually started out as a lighting artist or TD and then transitioned to a director or DOP. But it definitely does help, especially if you want to do your own thing, right? Hey, thanks for the follow over there on Twitch. Thank you very much. The Choco 3D, thank you. All right, so let's look at the texture baking thing, and we can start super basic here. So obviously you can see this is now my imported stand-in, which works very well. Let's just hide Tommy and do this. Let's just scale this guy up and do this. All right, so now we have this little sphere, and let's say we want to make, obviously you got to make sure you have UVs on this to texture bake it, and the default UVs are, I guess, working for what I want to show you. The Q notification guy is not directly a Twitch feature, it's a Streamlabs, like my hosting application with which I'm maintaining the stream. And if you follow, like subscribe on YouTube, you get also a cute little guy. Yeah, thanks to start it. Alright, so if I bring up the, let's say we just do a very basic AI noise here, like this. We do a flat shader. Flat shader is essentially just a constant. Like that. Alright, so let's render this. Obviously, let's actually maybe do a bit more interesting shapes here. Whatever this is, it's something. And don't say it's too perfect. Alright, so assigning this. And obviously we will get a bit stretched UVs now because I messed up with the topo, but it's fine. So let's say I have this noise here. I want to scale it to maybe 15. Make sure you have live rendering on. Yeah, and feel free to ask any questions, right? I'm trying to help everyone, so when I see a question, I'm trying to answer this as good as I can. Obviously, I'm not experienced in all the fields, but I'll try. All right, so let's say we have this, right? Now we want to do curvature as well. Let's say AI curvature here. We want to first set it up so we know it's working. Let's increase the radius here, 12 samples. And then let's actually smooth it. So I'm now just smoothing this using the Arnold subdiv here. Let's do 3 subdivs here. Okay, now you can see it's nice and smooth. And we want to flip the curvature as well. So right now it's I think convex. Yeah. We want this here, and we maybe want to multiply it higher. And we just want to essentially use this to color correct our image here. So I'm just creating a color correct node. Like, oh, not this one. AI color correct. And we just hook this up. Like that. What the hell is going on? Oh, because I did this. Alright, so now let's say I just want to reduce the edges there. So I can just multiply it down. And you can see now we get a darker ridge here. Alright, so let's say I want to save this. Let's actually first create a project here. I go to project window, new project. We do this on the desktop. And I'll just create a new folder here. Stream. Okay. I just got a nice little mug with coffee. Yeah, you can see now this is baking this into this object now. So let's say we want to use this as a roughness map, right? Let's create a standard surface shader here. And hook it up. We don't have any lights, so let's bring that back. All right, so we got a light source. And obviously you would now plug the output of this to the roughness, right? Very basic stuff, I believe. So now you should see some kind of pattern. Yeah, okay. So essentially what to do, I hope we get it to work. It's sometimes a bit tricky. So you go to utilities and you open it up, and then you have the bake selection to texture. So if I select my object and I hit this bake selection to texture, render selection to texture, you can specify your output folder. And if I go to stream, we can just say maybe source images, select that. We just start with a low setting, so let's do 1. you can apply a shader override. So I'm not sure actually what, I think right now it will just pick the shader which is assigned to it and bake it out. And we don't want to sequence render, so we don't want UDIMs right now. So let's just hit render. All right, so this did the baking now. So if I go to desktop and find my little folder here, you can see now we have this thing baked down. If I open it up, let's see what we get. You can see now this is actually baking the shader to disk, right? So this is the whole result, which obviously sometimes you want this for game engines. You want lighting baked in and you want bumps baked in. So this is how you would do this. But we don't want to do this, right? We want just to bake the raw texture. So essentially you can apply a shader override. Let's try this again. Render selection to disk. You can drop in a shader override in here. And I think you just drag it. And let's just test it. I'm not 100% sure if this will do it, but let's see. Reduce the AI samples and just render this. Let's see if this is now updated. And yeah, it does it. So you can see now this is essentially how you bake it to disk. And I can only recommend everyone to do this, like especially if you want to do, you have a student project and you have this amazing texture procedural shader and you want to render 300 frames of that. Bake down your maps. It's really important, and it will really save your butt in render times, and it will save you money in the end. So obviously now you can go again to selection to disk. You can crank up maybe, let's go 4 AA samples, and let's just go 1024. You can apply filtering. It's always better, I guess. Let's just render this one more time. And this will render in the obviously in the render space you have. It will not, I don't think it will apply the transforms or lookups you have. Obviously it will take longer now to bake just because it's higher AA and it's bigger res. In the meantime, let's see. So what is the best DCC to get curvature map variations? Like, yeah, I'm not sure what the question is exactly. Sorry, long question here. Let's have some dome light. All right, so the question is essentially how do you calibrate HDRIs to have them working correctly? So a good tip, which I always do, is set your shaders to a value which you know is correct. And the basic thing how you would do it is you set up a neutral gray shader ball and you apply, make it 18% reflective albedo, so it's like a neutral gray color. And try to remove most of the specular highlights. So you just increase the roughness to 0.7, for instance. And then you just look at it, right? So if you have your HDRI placed and you have your neutral gray sphere in front of you, you can pick the color which is coming back to the render camera. And if this is around 18%, maybe it's 0.2 or 0.15 or something like that, you know that your light is calibrated properly. If it's too dark, let's say it's 0.01, then you need to crank up your exposure in the light source just to compensate for that. Obviously, you need to make sure that your key lights, let's say you have an environment like I have here, where it's just one light source. Obviously, I don't want to look at the gray shader from behind, because this will be a different value. I want to look at it from my source light. And if I have a correct 18% value here, let's make sure you are color management off, go to 18%. That's my base albedo value. And as I said, roughness goes high. So if I pick the value here now, you can see now this value is around 0.3, which is like lit by the light directly, which is maybe a bit too strong. So what you can do, go to your light source and maybe go one stop down. And now we have essentially a neutral gray value of 0.11817. And this essentially is how you would, at least how to my understanding, how you calibrate the environment. So now you know if this surface is hit by this light source, we are getting 18% back. And how you would test it, you would go on set when you shoot the map. You will hold an 18% gray sphere, or you hold a Macbeth chart and you check the neutral gray value which comes back, and you just match it, right? So that's essentially how you calibrate your environments. And I'm not sure about this here, if this is calibrated or not, I don't know. But I have one which I know is calibrated, so I always use that one. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if it makes sense. Like, I was talking a lot now about this. Let's see. What's your hair grooming standard for VFX? What's hair grooming standard? Like, you mean what kind of software? I think XGen is pretty commonly used. But I'm not super sure about it. But I think XGen is one of the top things. All right, so let's bring this texture in. So if I go to AI image node, and because we were just baking the map, right? So this is now my map, which is now 11. Oh, did I do it wrong again? Yeah, dang, I did. Ha! I didn't do this shader override. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Just kidding. So let's just do it one more time. I'm selecting this, go to Arnold menu, utilities, render selection to disk. Let's just do 4 and we go to 1024. And we actually drop the flat shader in here. And just render it. So this should be actually faster now, I hope. Oh, there's actually, yeah, thanks for the guide there. Great. Come on, baking, baking, baking. So feel free to ask any other questions here. I'm happy to help. What else? So we talked about operators, texture baking, vertex painting. I didn't try that. I have something which is a rabbit groom, which I would do, but it's essentially like a grooming, like how to groom properly, but I don't think it fits into this right now. Yeah, I'll show you now how to connect it. I will show you how to connect the texture. I'm not sure what you mean by back-end information. Well, Houdini is obviously used as well, but I still think XGen is widely used because it comes for free essentially, and Houdini licenses are very expensive. And most of the studios do have Maya for animation's sake, so I think they tend to use XGen more, but I didn't say Houdini is not used. I think Houdini is used as well. So this is now my baked map, which I didn't select here. So now this is my result, and this should exactly resemble the flat shader. So if I hook this up again to my, what did I say, spec roughness, like that. If I hit render, oh, I didn't create TX yet, so let's just stop it. Go to Arnold TX manager and create the TX file. What is it set to? I think it needs to be utility raw, like that. So it's creating the TX files, and let's see if I render and I do isolate selected. This is now what my procedural shader looks like. And this here is what my map looks like. So you can see there is visually no difference, but you can even see this now. If I zoom in a bit, if I click on the color correct node, you see how long it takes to clear the result. It takes a bit longer. If I click on the texture now, boom, done. You see the difference? Text renders, 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 and done. You see it's like It's a lot faster. And obviously now, instead of using the procedural network, I can just plug this into my spec color or spec roughness, and we get the same result. So let's visualize this now, the difference. Takes a long time to process. You can still see there's like these sample issues. If I hook up the channel, the texture, it's definitely, like, I would say it's like 3 times faster, if I can say. Yeti. Yeti is also used. Yeah, I kept forgetting about Yeti. It's also a grooming plugin, which is a standalone. No, actually, it now has actually a My integration, as far as I know. We recently went to Hawaii and we got this little Starbucks mug. It was amazing over there, by the way. All right, so let's see. Yeah, I think like when I was using Yeti for playing around, it was actually very nice to use. It has a nice graph and it makes sense. You can apply quite a few things there. Obviously, you can do the same things with XGen as well, but it's a bit like you have all these sub menus and attributes and whatnot. It's a bit tricky. But I didn't. So Jimmy still does not understand if it's the same to go up with the light intensity or camera exposure. So something you need to understand is if you change your camera exposure, you are not changing the energy in the scene, right? So obviously you just change how much, like how the camera sensor is affected by the incoming light. You just multiply essentially the incoming light value. But on the rendering sense, you want to have the correct light bouncing in the scene, which is important. So if you just change, let's say you have a very low intensity rate of the HDRI, very low, and you want to get this 18% gray reflection. If you boost the camera exposure to see that pixel is 18% gray, you still did not change the energy in the scene. So you don't get more bounce lights, you don't get more SSS, all these sorts. So it's very important, at least how I get it, is that you leave your camera alone how it is, because it's just rendering the raw values and it's applying a color transform on top, right? So what I'm saying is make sure your light outputs the correct energy, and you do that by changing the settings in the light source. Hope that makes sense. So does it mean if we use baking, we don't need render passes for comp? So we use baked maps for comp? Well, you would never or very rarely output your textures or your specular roughness maps to comp. You would output the spec, like the final specular AUV, which is totally different, right? So that's a different thing, and you would still do the same. You would still go to your render settings and you go to AUVs and you would still output the specular direct and indirects. The specular albedo in this case would be the map, right? So if I refresh the render, we check the albedo, which is this now. Interesting why it's a bit different. But you would still output these maps for comp because they are based on lighting and shading and all these things. And you very rarely give comp the raw maps. Like comp never really plays around with this, or very rare, I guess. So you would not give comp baked out maps. No, you wouldn't do that. Pogofun, can you say how many custom scripts and custom code is used in production? So obviously if you work in pipeline, everything is custom, right? Like customized because you have your DCCs, you need to have the color pipelines, and everything needs to be mainstreamed. You can definitely get away with some vanilla Maya versions if you want to do some quick things, but like you have asset management, you've got the color pipelines, you've got your texture pipelines, and all of these things are pipeline coded for the specific need of the company. So I'm saying that it's you can't do too much with a vanilla version in a big production. In small studios, yes, you can totally pull it off, but in big productions, I would say no. On the LM Groom, working with the color map like tiger pattern. You're asking how to get a tiger pattern on a Groom, I guess. Very thank you. Yes, very pleased. Very pleasure. Just kidding. Arnold can do lens distortions. Yes, you would apply, you would go to the lens here, to your camera, go to settings, go down to Arnold, and you plug in a UV remap in here, I believe. Yes, you would do that. You have your radial distortion here. Does it do anything? Yeah, it does actually distort. But if you want to have like, if you have a shot plate and you captured the distortion grids and whatnot, and you have like a nice UV, you would plug in the UV remap in here and it will distort your image based on that. If I prefer Katana over Maya for look dev, I would say, would I say yes? One thing which is a bit a shame, you don't have the nice ISID selected features in Katana, but that's the only thing. I like how Katana is actually implemented. In Katana you have like the monitor, how you actually see your renders, like Arnold render view. The monitor is called, it's called monitor over in Katana land. And you have way more features in there to compare images, to A/B, to overlay, which they are trying to do in the render view too here. But in the sake of speed, like at least setting up node graphs, I think it's the same. I feel it's nothing too different. Well, Jimmy, I'm not sure. You would need to maybe give a bit more context on this. All right, so let's see what else we can talk about. So we did a few things. Oh, actually, something I wanted to show you, which is a bit of a throwback. I can show you one of the reels and we can see in my progress. I think that was like a similar question like that I can show about my experience in VFX. Let's see if I have all my reels somewhere. So I have my 2014 summer reel, and all I can tell you, it is bad. Or it's old. Not bad, maybe it's old. Where is the final output still? Oh, exports, here it is. Spring wheel. Oh my god. Let me just put this first on the side here. Oh, okay, wait, this is actually not as bad as I expected. I wanted to find my initial one, which is my, oh, it might be on yeah, it might be on YouTube actually. All right, so I think this is a nice idea for you guys to, yeah, I will show my latest reel too. So this is, let's just make it a bit larger. This is one of my first reels I used to apply for jobs. Yes, that was it, essentially. And you can see if you looked at the titles at the bottom here that we were using Mental Ray at that point, Mental Ray Maya for the Tarzan stuff. Yeah, so we had a few projects were actually pretty nice. Like, I love the integration work we did on this one. So she's actually full CG and we had to integrate the puppet into the plate. So that was a very nice project, to be honest with you guys. Here as well. So she was like a little rebel puppet, like similar to the Ted character. And yeah, we had some really cool challenges on that one. And then you can see, like, this were my first feature film works, mostly German productions. I just read the comment that if I could have rendered my face and use it as an ID card. I'm pretty sure if you can pull it off, I believe, yeah. But obviously this would be fraud and I don't want to do it, but I think you can. You can render your face and make it so real that you can use it as an ID photo, pretty sure. So what I wanted to show you actually, which I thought was in here, is on my YouTube channel. Let me just go to my videos. And I'm not sure if you guys actually looked at one of my first videos. They are pretty cringy, to be honest with you. So let's just go. Can we reverse this? Oh, list, yeah. Yeah, so this one, 2009, this was my, how I started, right? I'm just showing you the way how I started and got into the industry, essentially. This was my project for my, yeah, diploma video, my final video for my animation school. So let me actually just do this full screen and I'll be back in a bit. All right, I think the timing was good, or maybe maybe it's a second loop already. Yeah, you can see I was actually doing all the work, so yeah, I would not have done this. Like, obviously, this is a bit awkward, right? Having my name all over the place. But yeah, so this was, they said at least, I actually won an award with this, which was amazing. So at that time, I won a little iPod with a little, like one of the early iPods. So it's really, really, really funny to see this again. And then I had obviously all sorts of little projects at the side. So this was my bachelor project where I tried to do photorealism, which was a project of that. Oh yeah, Daniel, I'm surprised you know him from the Gamers Day. That's crazy. Yeah, he's actually still a friend of mine. We have still lots of contact, and we just sometimes have a little project together. So yeah, he's the director of the Gamers Day, which is like a Counter-Strike little thing. I'm not exactly sure what it's about, but it's good. Let's see if I missed a few questions. You love the Tarzan movie, thank you. For the Tarzan movie, we used Mental Ray, and honestly, I don't really remember how that shader setup was over there. Like, I can't give much about it. How I resize my windows? I have a little plugin called Alt Drag by Stefan Sandin, and you can set it up so it's similar on Linux. So you can just use the Windows key, click and drag to move, Windows key, right click and drag to scale, all sorts of things. Yeah, so essentially this is very early stuff, and you can see, like, I'm sure your renders when you start now, they look way better than the stuff I did, right? It's nothing really too fancy. Why is it lagging now? Not sure why it's not playing back. No idea why it's not really playing back. Hey Pizak, thank you very much for the follow over on Twitch. Much appreciated. Yeah, this is essentially one of my early student work here. Let's see if I have my other reels. So there's a question from Vimal related to grooming and Maya. So if we groom in a T-pose, then is it possible to transfer the same groom to a post model, which would be on another mesh? On another mesh, I don't think it's possible to do it in an easy way, I believe, unless the model has the same topology, like the same vertex count and the same, like everything the same, and it's just like a different kind of sculpt for the same model. You can just transfer them because the guides are placed on vertex points, I believe. So it's important to have that, but essentially if it's the same topology, yes, you should be able to transfer that quite easy. Kenneth suggests a super GPU and a CPU and a GPU for rendering really heavy scenes. I think you need to have lots of memory to render heavy scenes. Like, I'm not sure like what heavy is for you, but if you want to chug it away, you need lots of memory, and obviously you just search for the latest CPUs, right? You always grab the latest, which has the fastest calculations, and you just go with them. Obviously expensive, right? But it should work. All right, so this was my 15 showreel I presented. So then I obviously worked on more productions and developed my stuff. So this is now my 2016 reel, which is, I worked for Cinecide, where we did Nice Project, Fantastic Beasts. So I got, this is already when I was fully in the industry and worked on quite a few bigger shows, which was amazing. You can see I had Beller, like the German production in here, lots of integration work. And this is essentially like a Cinecide workflow here. Scrappy, thank you very much for the follow on over on Twitch. I used similar music, I adjusted them here and there, but now I have a completely different one in my most recent video. P5000 Quadro, yeah, definitely a great card. Yeah, you should totally, that's a great one to get. RTX is great too, yes. Obviously it's state-of-the-art stuff. So yeah, we had like quite a few challenges, like obviously Daniel Craig was a nice one, Spider-Man was an amazing one, so I was working on this here. Obviously I did not do the look and feel, but I did the rendering, like I did the nice volume raise and the projection stuff, which was cool. Look dev work on here, obviously not the final look dev, but quite a few things I worked on this. And then what I did at some point, I did a technical piece as well. So I was showing off my TD side of things, so how I code things. So with a buddy of mine, we worked on this AR utils, which is still somewhere on GitHub, which is essentially an overlay render view for Maya and Arnold. So you could essentially drag a region in the viewport, and it will kick off like a window into the render engine. And it was inspired by Softimage, where you would have these little store image icons, and you could pause it, and it's everything. You can do wipes, different AUVs. So this was all done before Arnold Render View was there, right? And you can see it would generate your IDs automatically, and we had some nice AOV managers, so you can just drag and drop AOVs from A to B. Pretty cool things we developed. This still exists, this attribute editor, so you can just manipulate lots of lights at the same time. So increase exposure, set temperatures and whatnot. And this is applicable to transform meshes and all these funky things. Let's skip a bit. I developed a light control, which is now implemented in Maya, essentially. While you have your lights, you can click them and it just gives you like a light view directly, so you don't need to move your camera, but you have like an independent light control. And now Maya adopted that, so they have something very similar of this. Hope that makes sense. So let's see about the questions. Yeah, I did work on a cool project. When did you start preparations for TD? I guess you mean by TD more technical stuff. So actually, when I started working on Tarzan, I started to get my hands dirty with Python scripting and little custom commands. And by that time, I was essentially hooked to just create more codes and workflow optimizations. And by that time, let me actually get that quickly. So, because it was so fun to work on all these things, I bought a few books. Like one is this one. You can actually see in the descriptions of my videos, you can get the ISBN number to actually get that. And then also this one. And both of these books are super amazing. They give you directly a kickstart for coding in general, and obviously Python Maya integration. So that was amazing to have the option to read those books and apply them to my environment. Actually, I can make myself a bit larger, so you don't need to see the Maya interface. Let's see the chat. What is the most common or simple way to create realistic human skin albedo? So I think right now you would just go to texturing XYZ and grab a diffuse albedo and a spec albedo, and you would just project that onto, obviously you can use Mari, Substance Painter, or ZBrush for it, so that doesn't matter. You would not, like, I think industry-wide you will not really paint them much. You would obviously get scanned data and project it and do some minor adjustments, but essentially this is what is commonly used. If I will publish a course on FX PhD, no, I don't think so. I'm thinking of creating my own little studio, which what I mean is like on my own website, my own courses over there, because I have a few courses on Udemy and they do help with the sales, but they take a lot of your revenue. So I'm thinking of doing it independently to get more of the revenue I'm selling. How long have I been programming? So I think I started 2015, like, so 5 years I did programming, but I did not really focus much on software development. It was mostly script writing. I do have 2 apps on the App Store, which is proper software development, which is for the iPhone, like a Swift development thing. I did not have any prior knowledge to scripting before those books. Ramazaksa, thank you very much for following on Twitch. All right, so that was my winter 16 reel. We can check, I think 17, did it evolve much? Oh, it did actually. So this has obviously new music. And you can see how I'm updating my reels. I'm always removing old content and always updating new content to always be on the latest and get rid of my old crappy stuff, right? So it's important to always showcase your best work you had at that time. So keep updating it. You can obviously keep the same music and whatnot, but just make sure to at least, like, depends on how many projects you work on, but always update it. Always keep it up to date. Because the worst thing is you have great work and then towards the end of your reel you showcase your student work, which is not so great, and then people will just keep that in their mind and say, oh man, this didn't work, so why does he have it? That's weird, right? Yeah, so let's just play this guy. So this is when I started working at RLM. So my first gig at RLM was Transformers, which was an amazing experience. We worked with Michael Bay together, and he's just a character. So we had some good fun over there. I got lots of nice shots here with Bumblebee and some fight sequences, really cool. Assassin's Creed, Fantastic Beasts. So you can see I just keep updating. That's still there. This was my look dev work. This is Black Panther, where I was doing the look dev and lighting on the Black Panther guy. So that was also very nice to work with that kind of asset, like so hero. Yeah, more Transformers work. More Transformers, so Black Panther again. Yeah, and you can see I just keep updating and updating. So this was my reel from 3 years ago, I believe. And then let's just skip to my latest. I didn't update it in a while then, but now this is my reel which I have right now. We can play the music too. Yeah, that was my current latest work. And there's, you can see I just keep adding stuff, right? It's a bit long for my taste. It's like 2 minutes, 10 seconds now. And I might have, as someone suggested or said, I love Transformers. I do love it, but it's maybe a little too much. But yeah, I'm right now working on quite a few shows, which is nice. So I guess in a half a year, I need to update it again to just add more content. Yeah, so this is a new show we worked on, which is got pushed because of COVID, which is an amazing show. I didn't add much info to this because I think I can't show too much. But I worked quite a lot on this character in terms of look dev, lighting, and the snakes, and I worked on this guy too. And I did lots of this one actually uses lots of different crazy shading techniques, which I at some point actually might showcase, which is a very impressive stuff. And then yeah, great project was Captain Marvel. Where is it? Where's she? Here, flying around in space, glowing, destroying all sorts of things. And then another great one was Aquaman. Even though the movie was not that great, like I did not enjoy it as much, but the work on it was nice. Like we were underwater, we need to create caustic patterns and all these funky things all the time. And then yeah, Captain Marvel, as I said. Oh, the pastry of... Thanks that you noticed that. The pastry is actually fully my work, that was like so great to work on. And I can talk a little bit of how I did it. Because it's not really, we don't really have a breakdown for this, I believe. So the pastry here is essentially one shader, which is a raw cookie dough, or like a raw dough. So this dough is actually transforming based on the shots. You can see from here it's super raw, and then already towards the end of this shot it feels already a bit more cooked. And then in this shot you can see it's like this, and then it cooks even more, and you can see that the crust gets browner and more crispy. And then towards the end you get the sugar coating on top, obviously. So essentially what I did here was animate displacement maps and specular maps and diffuse maps based on different maps, mostly based on curvature, because you would get baking where surfaces are round, right, and exposed to the heat. So this was very, very interesting and challenging to work on. So we had lots of iterations, and I played lots with animating range values and just get the look and feel right. So it was definitely really fun. Yeah, so animated displacement, animated roughness maps, animated albedo maps. We used occlusion, curvature, and custom noises. So yeah, it was definitely fun. The particles were a Houdini sim, so that's just particle sim, which just yeah, stop on the mesh essentially. But I think we did actually an attribute transfer to get actually like a wipe, like a mask wipe, and I was using that in the shader to apply some kind of sheen and some kind of white albedo on top. Let's first catch up on all the questions here. So is this right? Where are we? So last game, in those projects, do you light the assets or all the scene? How do you look? Okay, so I think the question is how much do I actually light? So at least for the project I worked on, we mostly focus on the hero assets. So I did not light, for instance, on this shot. Lighting was not on the background here. That was our generalist department, and I was focusing on integrating the hero assets with the background for essentially. And for, let's see, do we have Cinesite stuff? It's essentially most of the time. It depends how it's split, right? So we mostly do the hero asset work and not the backgrounds. And yeah. Do you also do pre-com in production? So in every production I worked for, we did pre-coms because you need to display or show your work you did on like your lighting. So you need to present that to when you have dailies, right? So you run your own pre-comps. You might do some black level adjustments, but essentially just do A over B. Yeah, pre-com. Still catching up here on the comments. Please talk about the shading techniques I just did, I guess. Yeah. Particles. Thank you. So how long time did you get on that assignment? Sorry. I don't remember. Like, we did not have too much time working on this. I think I pulled off the look within like 4 or 5 days. The first pass was very quick, but then we get lots and lots of rounds on notes like, oh, can you do this? Can you make this more brown? Can you make this and this? The problem is because we could not dial in the specs and displacements and comp. I had to get the timing just right to do it in shot, right? So obviously we did some very low texture maps, texture baking, low resolution texture baking, and rendered that, so we got fast iterations. But then, yeah, we had a few rounds for sure on this. I'm not sure. I can't obviously talk too much about it, but I can do like a similar character and just try to get something in the sorts done. It was totally fun to do it, and yeah, I can try to do something similar. Like, obviously I can't say exactly what we did here, but I can try to create some kind of translucent skin with snakes in it. I can try something, yeah. So baking maps is a thing that all do it inside industry for feature films. I hope they do. I hope they optimize their maps and textures to get the most efficient render time. So texture baking is highly recommended for this. Yes. Hey Dujan, there's my man. Yeah, I currently have lots of we do lots of cooperations and work together on lots of things. And he's actually the author of the Look Dev Kit, which I did not showcase today because I'm afraid, because last 2 times it did not work as expected. But actually, let's try it. I didn't test it before. Sorry, Dujan. But we will do it now. Why not? Make it interesting, right? So let's open my beefy Baron scene and see if we can do it. Great question, Jimmy. Like, how do you light huge sets? So one thing is to obviously, the thing is, even in a city, the HDI does not change, right? The environment is the same. It's overcast, it's sunny, so it's an infinite light direction. So for big light sets, I think it's easier to do it. Obviously, if you go close and you want to do like a kick light on that building, you need to do it manually. But you can also do like stack projections, so you can use different kind of environment spheres and place them all over the city and just math them out with a distance, right? So you can stack them all on top and you get more accurate reflection than projections everywhere. Oh, Look Dev Kit is still available in here. Not sure if this will conflict. Let's maybe start a fresh Look Dev Kit. So let's just do actually Control N here for a new scene. And hide this, and I don't know what this is, clear this. I'm just bringing in the raw geometry now for the beefy Baron. Almost forget where it is. I think it's in research. So this is my medium resolution. All right, so Look Dev Kit essentially is a one-click solution to create asset turntables and get a jump start into Look Deving. So essentially all we have to do is fire up his script. And as I said, I did not test it beforehand, which I should have done. So we will see. So this is loading the UI here. I hope this is the latest and greatest. And so all you need to do is load the UI, select your asset you want to apply the Look Dev Kit on and run it. So what it should do, it should focus your asset here, and it will automatically assign HDIs and shaders. So now I can essentially rotate my asset. I can have a shadow matte. I can apply depth of field. I have my custom HDIs in here. You can see they update in the viewport. I can frame it. I can assign my shaders. Let's say I want to assign a new standard surface shader. And we do this 18% gray, which we talked about. And Distorted, can you actually share the link to Dujan's ArtStation? Just that we can show it here. And so this is now set up. And if I open up the Arnold render view and move this a bit over and hit render, hopefully we can see stuff. No. Yeah, so you can see now this has been loaded just fine and we have this environment. So the cool thing is we can rotate the sky dome, right? So that's just updating. We can switch to a different HDRI. This should also update in real time. Just takes a bit of time to process, but now once it's loaded into memory, it's just instantaneously. You can, thanks to Distorted, you can very quickly just change HDRIs. You can change your different camera styles for different focal lengths, different f-stops. You can enable depth of field, which looks like this, and you have your focal plane, which you can place where you need it to be. Let's say I want to have the tip of the nose in focus. You can just control drag it, and now you can see his nose is in focus. You can change your f-stops here, and obviously you can rotate your asset too. Oh, does this not work anymore? Maybe I need to have it selected, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. So this connection just broke, I believe. Yeah, so it's very cool way of quickly looking at your asset in different light setups. Yeah, I keep changing my hypershade and node graph quite often, honestly. But this is actually the hypershade here. I just ripped out all the different windows you have, so this is still a hypershade. And you can set up turntables. So if I scrub my timeline, you can see that it's also updating. So you can see now if I scrub, you can see that the render is updating too, which is great. And I love to use it just because it's very fast way of working. It's pretty cool stuff. And then you can just remove it again if you're done with it. You can load Macbeth charts, which I didn't show yet. So this actually loads in the shader ball and Macbeth chart, which I hope it does. Not sure, it doesn't load it now. I think I clicked no, a few too many times here. Okay, it's gone. Let's try this again. Load lookdiff kit. Load kit is there. Load Macbeth. Okay, I think now it's working. Come on. Oh, that's okay. Nice. Cool. All right, you can see now we have the look depth chart as well in here. Obviously, let's disable depth of field. There we go. Let's just move this out of the side here. And you can place them where you want them. So there has a little selection box. You can scale them up, move them forwards, all sorts of nice fancy things here. Oh, come on. There we go. Right, this is super helpful, like really cool thing, and I will be using this way more often now that it seems to be very stable. All right, so let's see. It's 2 AM for you. Yeah, it's a good question. Like, how do I keep my passion going? And oh, I think my camera just died, so I think the batteries died. So let's just hope I can just swap it and we're back. Just give me a little minute here to swap out my battery. I need to get a cable actually so we don't use up all the batteries all the time. Okay, I think it's connected again. At least it was found as for my drivers. Okay, so now I need to quickly see if I can get it to work again. Oh, there we go. We're back. Funny. Okay. Today is a good day for my camera, I guess. Yeah, so let me see. How do I keep my passion going? So I think one big factor of this is getting this great feedback from all of you guys. Like, this just keeps me going, and it's kind of pressuring me to always make sure I create good content. And obviously on Discord, people are helping me quite often. Like, Conrad Moody was a big help to help me produce all those nice little animals. Let me actually open up that scene. Maybe I should do it on the side here. Scenes. I believe it's this one. So I was just asking if someone would be able to help me model a few objects, and he did not hesitate, and he actually helped, or he actually modeled all these guys here. You can see we got all these nice little creatures. Oh, actually, good that I opened this. I had a question like, how is the lighting set up for this, and what I did to make this work as it works right now. And first of all, I did a few more tricks. I added bend modifier. Like, first of all, this is my lighting setup for this. So I added like a big softbox. I added 2 light sources. One is like a front on light and one is like a side light. And I can actually render from this area here, from this angle, I mean. And you can see now how, you can see there's like a little hotspot of lighting going on. So I used the cone angle, like the spread angles. Let me see if I can isolate just that light source. So I have this light, and then I have this light, which just lights up my backdrop. And this one, and then I have my main area light. So that's essentially the light setup. Let's see, did we get some drop frames? Seems like the stream is not as smooth. No, we don't have. We have 0% drop frames. I think it's good. Yeah, so that is the light setup. And what I did as well for the cardboard, just to get a nicer reflections, you can see that the model is not straight. And what I did to fix it, or not fix it, to break it, I added like these twist handles. And what they allow me is to actually bend the geometry. You can see how this is bending it. And I did that to get some rotation, so the specs will not always be the same. Like, it's not perfectly straight like this, it's actually like distorted. And the twist modifier just helps me to get a bit more convincing feel of cardboard, right? You can even look at my reference here that it's not super straight. There's some kind of bendiness to this, right? So what I did, I created a bend modifier to kind of do this. I hope it makes sense. I think it makes sense. And then obviously I did the twist modifier for all the guys, a different twist for all the guys. You can see this one is totally busted. It's not straight at all. And yeah, I hope that makes sense. So let's see if I missed comments here. Hi Elaine, thanks for joining the stream. As a rendering artist, should you not be limited on render engines? I would say a render engine is just another tool set, right? So it's obviously it makes sense to be versatile and know a few render engines, but I would say nowadays, especially nowadays, all the render engines are getting towards the same goal. They all use the same physics. They use proper light bounces and ray tracing and all that sort. So essentially the pixel you get back are very similar in terms of the capabilities of the render engine. So I would say it's great. It's good to know a few, at least the most common used ones. but it's not mandatory. Like you can apply for a job which is in a totally different render engine, and I'm pretty sure you will feel comfortable and working there and adapting to the workflows very fast. Oh yeah, okay. On a previous stream, there's a question like the loc dev kit was a bit buggy, and yes, on the previous stream as well. I'm working with Dujan on the side testing his plugin. So he keeps updating it, and I think he keeps updating his ArtStation too. So I'm essentially a beta tester for him, and I keep giving him feedback. So he keeps fixing things and adding more features. So yeah. Let's see. Locator, yes. I think it died again. What the hell? Sorry, my camera just died. I think it's giving me a sign here. Not sure if it will come back. If not, I still have my webcam, I guess. It's just the battery. I need to get this like a power cord for it. Okay, let's just do this. Oh no, it's back. I don't know what it was. Okay, and let's see, maybe it will stay now. How often do you do master lighting versus shot lighting, and what's the process for rendering multiple shots in the same environment? Great question there, Daco. Essentially, the sequence lead, or most of the time the sequence lead sets up a master light rig, which has a overall environment map, and it has placeholders for rims and kick lights and bounce lights, and he does a projection setup. So this would be a master light rig, and then you do, obviously you run this master light rig on all the shots just to get a first pass, and then you show the first pass, or if you feel you need to do more work already, you can just go into the shot template and just add, like, adjust the gaffer, just add more lights, add more rims and whatnot. This would be on the shot based level. And working as a lead myself, I did set up quite a few master templates and lighting setups. So yeah, I do that quite often, honestly. Oh, I'm really glad you used the light shader, Looks Frost. So I actually need to spend more time on coding a bit to fix it. It's a bit dated, and I need to add a few more features which I have been working on. So yeah, thanks for using the tool. A question if I think it's good to add a texture deformer for noise, and I would say no, just because you can do it with a displacement map, and it's essentially doing the same thing without needed to be subdivided before applying the texture deformer. Unless if you want it for real time, and I'm sure they don't have. I'm not sure if they do have like correct displacements, like moving polygons, like vertices. So I would say no, do it at render times, apply displacement map. That's what I would suggest. If I can do a tutorial on interactive grooming in Maya. So you're talking about X-Gen grooming? I think I have a few of those ones, right? Let's just do this. So if I have this guy here, I can just give you a very quick introduction to X-Gen, I believe. Just hide all these windows here. All right, so you have this guy, and now let's say you just want to work on the hair. You would do a selection, lasso tool. So you would try to define a head shape first, and you can then extract those faces, and you would do this with brows and whatnot, right? So now we have this split. Obviously this would be now my grooming geometry, and what you can do now, you can also there's a new tool here which is remesh, I believe. Let's see what this does. Oh no, that was not good. Let's see. Is it retopo? How do you like the tunes? I hope they're not too distracting. Let me know. Come on, do the retopo here. Why is it so slow? You love the tunes? Great, that's cool. Alright, so now we have a very low res mesh. Obviously there's some messed up faces here, but we can just work with this, I believe. So let's just do a quick sculpt tool. Or not so quick. I just want to soften this, it's a bit too broken here. I should have frozen my transform history first. Come on! You see, that's why I don't work in XGen or in Maya directly. It's like, sometimes it's just, it just doesn't work as you would expect it to. So I just wanted to do essentially this. And then we do Alt-Shift-D to clear the history. And then we don't have this side, but we don't care now. So I just go to the Generate menu and open up the... Pull these ones off first. We go back to Generate and Interactive Grooming Splines. We just call it Head. Create it. So this essentially are interactive grooming splines from the get-go. And then you have the same tools you have like in other applications like grooming and sculpting. And in my sculpt layer, for instance, I can move things around. But what I tend to do, like at least for me, I create a guide first. Select the head, and then I'm creating a guide modifier here. And let's just remove the sculpt first. We don't need it now. So in the guide and the attribute editor, you have the option to create guides. So this will create me guide curves. Where's the interactive grooming? And I'm not sure why I don't see them though. Oh, there they are. Okay, so they're just there they are. So I need to assign a basic shader here. All right, so these are my guide curves, which I'll be using to actually guide the hairs. That's essentially what they are for. Let's just keep this floating. And in the guide hairs, I can specify how much I want. I can reduce the density. And essentially now I can go in here in my sculpt layer for this guides. And I can just edit this and change my brush to, let's say, comp brush. It's already a symmetry on. Make this larger, and now I can just essentially just groom or comb the hair, right? Just give it a rough shape. And if you don't want symmetry, you can go to your tool options and just disable symmetry, right? Just off. So this would be guiding, like creating guide curves like this. And then if you want to show the hair again, you would just visualize it like that. And now you can see that my hair is following the guide curves. Like that. And then you have all sorts of things like thicknesses, and I don't know, you can do all sorts of different things in here. You can clump them. So if I would to add a modifier, I want to add a clump modifier in here. You can see now they are clumping. The similar thing we did on the Houdini side now. You can adjust your clump profiles, your clump densities. Let's say I go to 15, you get very small, maybe 5 then. You get smaller clumps if you want more head. So this is essentially how to do at least the basic things, right? Man, I was a bit excessive here again. There you go. So now we have tons of hair. I accidentally clicked 54 instead of 5 in terms of the density. Yeah. Or rendering. So I'm not sure if I like, yeah, I do character rendering quite often. And if you guys don't know yet, I actually created this Beefy Baron render, and let's just bring up the temps here, which is my final. So something like this, and this is something I did on the Twitch live stream, and like essentially doing the grooming, and the shading was done in Arnold Maya. So I'm planning to do like a proper tutorial on this, yeah. I believe I have a tutorial on the grooming side. Let me just pull it open here. Let's see. Going back here. Oh yeah, I'm streaming live. Wow, look at that. Haha. Let's see my videos. So yeah, I believe this one here. Yeah, so this is like a better introduction. Like this is about clumping and guide clumping and all sorts of things. So have a look at that. It's essentially what I just showcased a bit more in detail. And I can share this in the chat. I'm not sure if you want to simulate the hair. I believe you have these, you've got some kind of sims in here. I think you can animate the guide hair somehow. You can make the guides dynamic. Not sure exactly. Actually never tried this. Make guides dynamic, collide with mesh, yes. Not best, so yes. So if I, let's see if I animate this now. Not sure exactly. I can figure it out though. How to make them dynamic. I believe, yeah, the idea is you have your guides, which are you similar guides essentially, right? I'm sure there's a way, and there's 100% a way. I just don't know it. Failed. Why did it fail? Unexpected internal failure. Requires at least one UV set. Okay, we can try that. UVs, automatic. Done. Let's try this. Where's my editor? Grooming editor. Did I close it? I can't see it. Interesting. Huh. Yeah, let's see if we can get it to work. So feel free to ask any more questions so I can address those. So now you can see something is happening. The mouse is going crazy. Lots of flickering going on. Yeah, and it should work with the hair system. So making guide dynamics is successful. Not sure if I see anything though. Oh, there we go. Boom! Obviously, now I think you should be able to apply dynamics like gravity and all sorts of things. So we have a rigid system now. So in here, I believe you can do all sorts of crazy things. Obviously, you guys need to check it out. Like if you really need to do it, like you would need to figure out what's happening. If I bring the hair back, you should see now the hair is simulated. Let's see if we can play back. Well, sort of. It's maybe 1 frame a second. So yeah, that's the way you do it. Do you have a tutorial on gelatin shader in Redshift? So what is gelatin for you? Is it like a transparent jelly, I believe? Let's see, I know what gelatin is, but maybe you have a different idea of what it is. Ooh. Okay, let's try Google. I guess like this, right? So to me, it looks like a very simple glass shader, I guess. Jello, yeah. And I believe you can just do it the same way you would do like a glass shader, right? I don't think there should be a difference. So let's go in here and maybe try a few things here. All right. So now we can do look dev kit. Let's just zoom out a bit. Okay, obviously I will not be showing this in Redshift now, but well, I can actually. I do have it loaded. Come on, load it. All right, so essentially gelatin, right? So you don't have any base here. For now, we don't have any specs either. We just have transmission. We bring it up to 1. We don't have any roughness. We play around with the scatter maybe and the depth. So let's say we want to do red gelatin, red jello. We do this, desaturate it a bit. Like that, and we do play with the depth. Maybe go 0.1, 0.2, and now we can bring in some scatter. You can see now what we're doing here. Scatter is essentially like tiny particles, I guess. Bring up the specs. So this would be my very quick jello shader. And you can add a bit of roughness, which should break this up a bit. Let's render this in full HD. Oh man, thanks for the donation, Strider. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope you love the little bunny rotation there. Just made it for you. Thank you very much. Dono, yeah. All right, so now you have this, right? So I think this looks already convincing. Obviously, I don't have the right shape of that little tower. And now you want to have objects in that floating. I don't know. Let's just try to add an object in here floating. What will happen? Let's do a sphere. And let's go top view. 4 frame. And maybe do this. All right, so now we have these no geo, all shader. You're crazy, man. Yeah, it's not. Well. We can actually do it just shader based. I always say no too quick here, so let's try. Okay. Well, let's first see how this would look. All right. Oh, there we go. Objects, right? It just works with that shader. And if you want them to be glass, obviously you want that to be an air bubble. You would either invert your IOR or you would flip the normals, right? So this would be a little air bubble, but now the normals are the wrong side. So you can essentially go to mesh display options and reverse the normals. And now it's correct. Now you have little air bubbles in here. All right, so now comes a crazy question. To do it shader based. So we can try, right? I'm not saying I can do it in the live stream here, but I'm not saying it's not possible either. Let's just open the window here, just to get some air in here because it gets warm. All right. I think we're so good. No drop frames. Yeah, okay, Nick, let's try it. So what you can do, it's similar like what I did on the crystal shader ball. You would need to duplicate it though, I believe. I hope that is fine. It must be fine, otherwise I can't help you. So if I duplicate this and I rename this to volume and I just for now hide the other one. Outliner, let's just hide this. Right, so if I assign a volume shader to this, oh man, I'm not sure if this will work. Thanks for the follow, Fatness Aberdeen. Yeah, man, that's a good one. Love that. Good name. AI standard volume is what we want, actually. Come on. And then what I want to do in here, there's an Arnold tab, and you can actually say volume attributes, and you can... I think that's all you have to do. Yeah, you can see now we already have something. So what I'm trying to do here is create a volume shader, essentially. It's hardly visible though. There you go. Right, so now we have this. And what we can do with this is, I believe we can apply a density map. Let's try. So this is something normally I would first test before saying it's possible, but we'll see. Let's change this to Wally. Does that have UVs? No. I'm not sure if it needs UVs, but it might need UVs. So what I first try now is create a cell noise shader, which is essentially an object space, which is good. I don't know if they are just in a 2D. No, they actually should be 3D noises. Oh, I'm not so sure about this. No, it's just single value here. Let's see. Density needs to be flipped. We want to grade it. And then we want to add a multiply. And we want to multiply it with maybe 10. Okay. 20. Okay. Hi from Barcelona. Hey, Joseph, how's it going, man? You guys seeing what I'm doing here? I hope it makes sense. Like, I'm trying to create a nice little pattern of bubbles with a volume shader, and then we use a volume shader inside the Jello shader. I think it makes sense. I'm just trying to fine-tune the size. Alright, so first let's hide those spheres. And now let's bring in the other shader, the other gear, I mean, and see what we have. I think it does work. It's a bit hard to read, but you can see it on the backside for sure. And obviously you can play with the volume shader, which we didn't do yet. So, and they might be poking through as well. So I guess it's not... You can scale it though, I believe. You can just make the gear a bit smaller. Now it's poking... Well, obviously, maybe it's not perfect. But yeah, so now at least they're not poking through. So is that a workflow for you, Nick? It's something, right? It's not perfect, but it's you could essentially do it with a volume shader, and obviously you can play around with the shader to make it a bit more solid, I believe. I'm not sure if you could apply... No, because it's based on density. You can't add specular on it, I believe. You can't do that. You can add displacement as well to break it up. Yeah, it's something worth to try out for sure. But it was definitely a great question, and you can see it's very challenging. You can create your own custom OSL shaders and scatter points in the shader, but that's definitely tricky. Yeah. Alright, so if there are not any more questions... Oh, you were thinking about scattering absorption maps. They are just, the thing is with those maps, they are just on the surface, right? Let's try it quickly. So by just this, you were thinking of putting a map in the absorption or the scatter, I believe. So they are all mappable, which is great already. So what if you try a 3D noise? I think AI noise has the option to be 3D too. Vector, and we can try to... Oh no, does it work like that? No, I think it doesn't. Let's try texture 3D node. Noise. How was it? Was it projection based? I thought you could create like 3D noises. That's just 2D. What is AI on 3D? Huh. No. Maybe it's a projection based one. I was thought, like, I'm pretty sure there was a way to create a 3D texture, which is not based on a projection. But it has this place 3D node. Like this one. Would you just plug it the same way? No, well, I don't know. We can try quickly with the 2D noise here. Let's just with the regular noise. If I plug this into depth and a range. What do I want to do? I want to plug it into the depth, right? So out color red goes to what did I say? Depth, transmission depth, I believe. Yeah. So now if I visualize the noise looking like this, we can do scalar mode. Maybe let's use the same cell noise we did before. Do the same Wally and scale it to maybe 5. Yep. And then we range it the same way. Funny. Obviously this will only be, it will only look like it's on the surface though. It will not be in the depth of it, I believe. Yeah. And obviously then you want to have a depth value before. You don't want to be on 1. And you don't want to be on 0 either. So you want to be maybe very low here and then... Yeah, it's also worth a shot, I guess. But it will only be on a 2D level, so if I rotate it. But I think you can totally try more advanced things with this, so it's maybe a start. Yes, this will be available on Twitch and on YouTube afterwards as well. Let's see. Yeah, alright, so are there any last questions here to answer from my side? Let me just do this here. So let me know if you have any more questions, and if not, then I believe this was the stream for my Saturday, morning, I believe. And most of you guys, it's already late, I guess. At least it's night, at least in Europe, I can say. Yeah, for me is what do we have? A little bit overcast. Maybe I can try to show that. Oh, does it not update? Maybe not. I was just trying to adjust the exposure, but I think I can do it here. Where is it? Exposure compensation. Oh, is it updating? Yeah, it is. So yeah, that's what you can see outside the window. Anyways, thank you everyone for joining me in the stream today. It was a great one. We talked about lots of different topics. What is the avatar book? Okay. Last one. Let's just go a bit lower though on the exposure. Like that. I'll just bring it up quickly. So Avatar book is a very great piece of a book. It shows all the behind the scenes. Let's see. I don't know. It's like insane, like artwork in it, and it's just essentially like a making off of great artwork. Let's see if I find some nice to show here. Like how they built the sets, how they did the mocap, and I don't know, like tons of things to look at. So definitely, if you want to be motivated and stuff like that, yeah, look at this. Like, look at books like these, right? It just gives you lots of information to work on your own projects. Lookdev Kit is developed by Dusan Kovic, so he's a technical TD, and he's actually working on quite a few things. So you can find this on his ArtStation. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys, everyone, and I appreciate all the comments, and obviously keep supporting me by subscribing, following, and giving a thumbs up. I would highly appreciate that as well. And I will see you soon in the next upcoming stream or tutorial. So it was great having you guys around, and yeah, as I said, see you soon. Thank you.